Coming to you from Reason Alliance Media, this is episode 29, A Fucking Ray of Sunshine. I'm Miss B. Haven.
And I'm Amanda Wright.
And we're
promoting secular feminism. On this week's episode, we have the inestimable Dr.
I'm leaving that in. Keep going.
Holy fuck, it's been a long week. The inestimable. I'm going to start using shorter words, and then I won't have this problem. Dr. Darrel Ray of the podcast Secular Sexuality, among many other things. We have a titillating topic called Access Denied. It's reproductive rights stories from our listeners. And we have an episode of Dr. Woo. Woohoo.
Dr. Ray is totally the Mr. Rogers / Bob Ross of sexuality.
Does he have the same hair?
No,
he doesn't, but he's so
But he has
soothing.
a very soothing voice.
He's talking about, like,
Vlogging.
and you're just like,
oh, that's lovely.
I could have used that while I was working on the plumbing at the new house.
just listen to his podcast.
Is that a
Seriously.
euphemism?
No.
Working on your plumbing?
No, I was working on the house's plumbing.
The end.
This has all been recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez. In the great hall of Reason Alliance Media, there are assembled the world's greatest secular feminist podcasters. On this show, created by the make-believe cosmic legends of feminism in the universe, Miss B. Haven, Amanda Wright, Producer God, and those knuckle-headed phallic jackanapes in the penis gallery. Their mission, to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all feminist kind. You too can help bridge the gap between secular and feminist communities and fight the sinister forces of ignorance and apathy. Go to patreon.com/promoting secular feminism and make your pledge and reap the rewards. For only $1 per episode, you will receive the sincerest gratitude of the PSF team, a mention on the show, and proof that God, our producer, exists, with more PSF episodes. For $5 per episode, you will get everything from the $1 level and become an honorary member of the Penis Gallery. For $10 per episode, you will get everything from the $5 level and an invitation to a monthly Google Hangout with the hosts, Miss B and Amanda, and maybe God and the Penis Gallery. For $20 per episode, you will get everything from the $10 level and a CD of PSF comedy sketches for each season you support, starting with the latest season, and downloadable digital files as well. It's Promoting Secular Feminism, a proud member of Reason Alliance Media, and its proud patrons against the Legion of Doom. This is the challenge to become a PSF patron. Welcome to Educated Guests. Today, our guest is Dr. Darrel Ray. He's the founder of Recovering from Religion, the Secular Therapy Project, and has a wonderful podcast called Secular Sexuality.
We are so excited.
He's an author and just all-around great guy. Welcome.
Well,
should
thank
we
you.
call you Darrel, Dr. Ray?
Yeah.
How should we
Darrel.
address you?
Well, my friends call me Darrel. I have some enemies that have other words for me.
Oh, okay. We have some nemesis here at PSF.
We just refer to ourselves as our awesomeness. So that's it.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our show. And we have reached out to our listeners, and they're so excited that you're here as well. So if you want to start just by giving our listeners some information that you'd like them to have about yourself.
Well, gosh, I'm the author of The God Virus and Sex and God, 2 books that I think everybody should read, obviously. Really am passionate about recovering from religion. That's what I founded, and all the volunteers. We've got 75 or 80 volunteers working constantly, and we're always looking for more volunteers to help us with our hotline and our chat line, because we want to help people. Well, I'm fond of saying there's lots of groups that'll get you into religion. We're the only one that will help you out.
There you go.
That's kind of the focus. We are not deconversion or anything like that. We're just there to listen and help people if they're dealing with issues around, I raised my kids religious and now I'm not, or I'm thinking of leaving the church, but I'm scared, and those kind of things. No, there's nobody to talk to. You certainly wouldn't go talk to your minister about that. So who are you going to turn to? And recoveringfromreligion.org is the place. So I'd really like people to go look that up. Other than that, I'm just a psychologist, and I've been a psychologist for most of my career, and really enjoy helping people and really enjoy putting systems and groups together to help people. That's kind of my passion. So that's why you see the Secular Therapy Project and this Recovery from Religion and other things. And we also work and help with the Clergy Project, where that is not a part of our group, but we do work with them a lot. Another outreach program. We've always got new stuff we're putting together.
Great. Wonderful. So listeners, if you haven't checked out Recovering from Religion, do that and become involved in their hotline project.
Absolutely.
So
you get good training before you can be turned loose. We got really good training for people if they want to volunteer. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. We have a question from one of our listeners, and I'm sure this is the question that you get most often. So we'll start with this one, which is, how can formerly religious people best deal with the lingering shame or taboos when it comes to sex and sexuality?
Wow, that's a tough one. And it's a tough one for a lot of us, and I include myself, because at one point in time, I had to deal with that shame and guilt that I learned when I was growing up. I mean, I was told that masturbation was wrong and sex outside of marriage was going to send you to hell and that sort of stuff. So I don't know that there's a quick fix for it, but I think the first thing I'd advise people to do is do some reading. Get out there and learn something about human sexuality, and go to some groups that are sex positive. I think the most interesting, you can read all the books in the world, but once you go to a group that is totally sex positive, and you're standing, having a Coke or having a beer with somebody, and you can overhear somebody else's conversation. They say, yeah, I masturbated twice yesterday, and oh, my polyamorous family is doing very well. I mean, when you start hearing that as normal, then it really helps you realize just how much you've been programmed. That's a big reason why I wrote my book, Sex and God. I wanted people to see just how much even non-religious people have been programmed into all this stuff. Can I use 4-letter words on this?
Oh, yes.
Okay. How much shit we've been programmed with. How's that?
So that's true. I mean, even in my own experience and my husband's experience, even if you weren't previously religious, we live in such a religious culture that information is about sex negativity is pervasive, even if you don't step through the door of a church.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I think there's another thing you can do, and that is, if you're married or if you have a partner, start learning how to talk about those things just with your partner. Those things that you feel ashamed of, maybe you like to look at porn and masturbate. Well, admitting to your partner that you do that is a first step to getting over the shame. Or maybe you feel still some guilt about having sex with your partner, even though you're not religious anymore, but you're not married.
Right.
Talk out loud about that. And here's my contention. If the most intimate, most important person in your whole life, you cannot tell this kind of stuff to, that says a whole lot right there. It's a great, great place to point. That it kind of points to the area you need to work on. If you feel like, I could never tell my husband that I fantasize about having sex with two men. Okay, then there's an area. Not that you have to have sex with two men. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying, if you can't even talk about your fantasies with the most important person in your life, that's the place to work on. So that's the
that's a great litmus test there.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I would think would be helpful too is just maybe before getting to that point, even like journaling about it, or maybe having as a first step, maybe a private blog or something where you log these things that make you feel ashamed, and then getting to the point where you can talk to your spouse or partner about it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That's a good point. Yeah. Another thing you do is read.
Yeah.
Read stuff to each other. There's some interesting, for example, a partner and I several years ago read from Fred the Parts of the Ethical Slut together. So I'd read a chapter and then she'd read a chapter. And that really led to us having some really interesting conversations.
Yeah, I imagine so. That way then it's as if you have someone else's words, but you're beginning to verbalize without having to at first take ownership for that information, right?
Right. I think you're exactly right, Deidre, is that you don't have to take ownership for it. I'm sorry, got the wrong name, didn't I? Demand.
That's okay. No problem.
It happens.
So, another big concern that we often come across and that our listeners have mentioned is that in our culture, there is so much information about sex addiction that's problematic. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. What I'd really like to see is more information on Facebook addiction.
That's a good point. Or just device addiction, where someone always has a device in front of their face.
Right. iPhone addiction.
Yeah.
You hear all these people talking about sex addiction, but I see people walking around in the streets, crossing streets while they're watching their iPhone and not even paying attention to whether it's a green light or a red light. Now, that could get you killed. Nobody's talking about that. So I don't attack, I do attack sex addiction as a concept because it's a stupid idea, but I try not to put people on the defensive. I would say that if people want to know more about this, they could go to my talk at Free OK. Seth Andrews of the Thinking Atheist videotaped it and put it up. I think it's the single most viewed video I've ever done, I think, but because there's so many people that think there's such a thing as sex addiction.
And why do you think that's for? Because people find it titillating to talk about sex, or people want some type of excuse or escape from whatever they're engaged in that they feel shame about? Why do you think that sex addiction myth has become so pervasive?
Well, because the religion has told us that sex is dangerous and your body is your enemy. So I don't care if you're religious or not, you've still been programmed with those ideas that your body is your enemy. I mean, think about it. Oh, and especially women's bodies are the enemy. So when you put that into people's brains, and even though they may leave religion, they still carry around some of that indoctrination. So if you were told that masturbation will ruin your marriage and you're masturbating a lot, well, maybe it's your masturbation that's ruining your marriage. Some years ago, I had a guy come to me in therapy, and he said, I think I've got erectile dysfunction, ED. And I was really concerned. He's not married, but he's been living with his girlfriend for like 3 or 4 years. I asked him, okay, how do you know you've got erectile dysfunction? And he said, well, because every time I want to have sex with my girlfriend, I can't get an erection. Okay, well, then let's ask one more question. Do you masturbate, and can you get a hard-on there? And he said, well, yeah, I get great hard-ons when I masturbate. I said, well, then you don't have erectile dysfunction. You've got relationship dysfunction. And he said, well, he never thought about that. He could masturbate to porn, but he couldn't get hard. Well, then he must be a sex addict. No. You have a relationship problem. Don't try to distract it or deflect it by calling it something else. And when he went back and he sat down with his partner and they tried to work things out, it was real clear they had a relationship problem, and they broke up within a few months after that. It had nothing to do with his erectile dysfunction or his porn addiction. See, my hunch is that a lot of people want to blame something else. It's a lot harder to sit down with your partner and talk about what you want out of the relationship and what you don't want out of the relationship. And to admit, here's something else I'll throw out here. You are the first sex partner you're ever going to have, probably. And you may be the last person you have sex with. So you need to love your own body first. And there's not a crime in masturbating and enjoying your own body. And but the Christian thoughts and our Western thought is that, well, if you're not having sex with your partner, then you're cheating your partner. Well, that's bullshit. You decide to share your sexuality with your partner, and you have the right to have your own sexuality independent of your partner. So somebody asked me the other day, well, do you think it's wrong if I don't let my partner have another partner? They wanted to talk about polyamory, and I don't want to share my partner. And so I wrote it. I put it up on a public Facebook page last week. I said, well, here's the problem. You're using language of ownership. You're saying, well, you own your partner so you can share your partner. Well, that's kind of bullshit thinking. Nobody owns your partner, and your partner doesn't own you. So you choose when and how much you want to share your sexuality with your partner. It was a major reframe for him, I think. I think he really changed his mind about this whole idea of, does he want to let his partner be polyamorous or not? Well, that's really not his decision. Surely, maybe she should consult him a bit, and there should be safety and maybe some understandings, but you don't control the other person. I'm sorry. Did I get off track too much?
No. That leads me into another question. One of our listeners has a question about her experience with male sexual shame, that she tends to have a lot of male partners that have some type of shame, and that causes them to, and I'm reframing her question, so I'm sorry if I get it a bit wrong, but that causes her to wonder about whether they're really treating her as a human being or a person, right? Yeah. Rather than another set of genitals they want to interact with.
Yeah. Wow, that's a cool question or quote. I wrote an article a couple of years ago. It was published. It's available online too, called Male Shame. And it's the other side of the coin of female shame. In fact, I don't think we can understand the way women are shamed in our culture unless we also understand the way men are shamed in our culture. And I think men really are shamed in ways they don't even know and they can't admit to themselves. So I hear that a lot in relationships, that men are ashamed of their own body. Men are ashamed to admit they like things. The men are ashamed to admit, well, I like cross-dressing, or I like wearing women's underwear, or I like to masturbate while watching my partner masturbate, or any of those things, because we have this myth of men should always be masculine and men should always be in control and all this bullshit. And when that doesn't happen, it disrupts the intimacy between two people. And I think there's a lot of that going on when I hear couples having trouble. I could give you a number of examples of clients I've had. It's just amazing how often that comes up. I don't know how much you want to hear.
Well, so that was LaTanya's question. And so she just wanted some advice on how she should deal with that when it occurs.
Yeah. I think the first thing I'd suggest is have your partner go read the article on male shame and then sit down and talk about male shame. Because I think what the article will do is give you an introduction to the concept from the male's perspective. And then she can talk, well, both of you, of course, should read the article. And then she can ask her partner, does any of this ring a bell with you? And the man might say, well, yeah, I am pretty ashamed to admit X, Y, or Z or whatever. It gets the dialogue going. The beautiful thing about relationships is the intimacy of the conversations. Sex is, I think, is the avenue by which you gain entrance into another person's mind. And that's pretty cool. How many times do you get to step into someone else's mind and really understand them and have them really understand you. That's one of the uses of sex, obviously. I'm not saying casual sex is bad or anything. It's just in the long term, you're probably going to be using sex more as an intimacy development tool than anything else.
Yeah, that's the most sex positive definition of sex that I've heard. That it's an entrance into someone else's mind. I like that.
That's really cool. Yeah. I would prefer that instead of the eyes are the window to the soul. Because I'm like, where's the soul?
How many times has it happened to us? And I mean, as our species, as people that are listening to this, that you've had some great sex, and then you lay down and you have some great conversation. And I'm going to suggest that if you can have the great sex, that's great. Let's have great sex. I'm always in favor of that. But if there's no great conversation ever, then maybe that sex isn't serving all the functions and purposes that it could. I don't want to be sex negative in the sense of denigrating casual sex or people who choose to not be super deep or intimate, but I think there's a real it serves a real important function in human connection.
Yeah, well, even in cases, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but even in cases of casual sex, we want that intimacy, that human connection, the connection to another person, and so even in that case, the sex is a way to get that connection, to get that sense of intimacy with someone else.
I think there are myths that get in the way. You know, I am really big at debunking myths. And whenever I start working with somebody, even especially atheists, I find there's a ton of myths that they've got about sex, about their own bodies, about relationships. And I know that some people think, and this is not just a man thing, but I'm going to use men because it seems more common with them, is they have sex with a woman and they think, oh no, she now thinks she owns me and she can control me. And that's in my experience, most women don't want you to stay overnight, don't want you there for breakfast necessarily. But we have this myth, and where'd this myth come from? Well, all you have to do is turn the radio on and listen to 8 of the 10 top pop songs this week, and you will hear, "You belong to me. I own you." I mean, the language of ownership is replete throughout pop music. It's replete throughout literature. I mean, Shakespeare has got people getting murdered because they think they own their spouse or vice versa. So there's tons of this ownership bullshit, and it pervades our culture. And it's inside the minds of men and women when they have sex that, oh, I've had sex with you, now I own you. And there's cultures that practically believe that. Islam,
definitely.
Hinduism and Islam and Christianity, all three, Judaism. If I've had sex with you, then I own you. And then, of course, you got the evangelicals that think, well, you have sex with somebody, then they've taken a part of your soul and all that bullshit. So I think we need to be challenging these myths. And wow, what a beautiful life you can have once you've gotten rid of those myths. And then you can choose, do I want to have casual sex and a great conversation afterwards? Or do I want to have a long-term relationship that I don't own that person, they don't own me? There's just so many things to start enjoying about sexuality after that. Right.
Just experiencing other human beings and engaging with people as, fully fledged autonomous individuals. Right.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question to that, which is, what do you think is the weirdest sex myth that you've heard?
Wow. Well, you'd have to tell me what context, because weird.
Maybe I should ask, what is the sexual myth that you think has been the furthest from the truth?
Oh gosh, there's a number of those. The Madonna whore myth is an interesting one. I don't. It's furthest from the truth. I don't know if I can calibrate what you're asking, but But this notion, it comes from the Catholics. And I find there's Protestant myths about sex, and there's Catholic myths, and there's Muslim myths about sex. They all stem, of course, from the religion. But this Madonna whore thing is really interesting because I've worked with so many couples over the years that came out of a Catholic tradition and find that before they got married, the sex was really great. And then after they got married, the sex died really, really quickly. And I got my first hint at that when I was dating a woman who was kind of quasi-Catholic, but she'd been raised pretty strict. And she and I we were fucking like bunny rabbits, like within a week after we met, having a great time. And but I almost never went to her apartment. This was like in 1989 or so, before cell phones. I almost never went to her apartment. Well, one day I showed up at her apartment kind of unannounced, and not that was wrong. I just was in the neighborhood, and I go into her bedroom and I find stuff I've never seen there before, because I had been to her apartment many times. And there was a Jesus, and there was a Mary, and there was a rosary, and there was a Bible. There was all sorts of religious shit in her bedroom. I say, wow, where did all this stuff come from? And she says, well, if I know you're coming over, I take it down because I just can't come with Jesus watching me.
Oh.
Well, I can imagine that would be a problem.
Come, well, I'll tell you, she was really loud when she came. But so this myth that, you can fuck the whore, but you can't fuck the Madonna. And that was partly what was going on in her head. And you get these kind of myths in people's heads, and it really screws up the relationship and the marriage and the ability to enjoy their bodies and the other person's body.
Yeah, I think it's quite pervasive, especially from the woman's perspective, that men either want to engage with me as a sex object or as, a person they can talk to like their mother, right? So it's one or the other. And it's often hard to combine those two, that I can both be a fully functioning human being to have a conversation with and an object of sexual desire at the same time, and be good with both of those at the same time.
I've seen so many sitcoms about this.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? And the interesting thing that we can do is, because we're not limited by religious dogma, we can talk out loud about our fetishes, about our fantasies, about how we like to have sex or don't have liked. And that can lead to role playing. I mean, let's role play that I'm a whore or I'm a pimp or I'm whatever. You can role play anything you want. And that takes the shame away from it. Because when you're finished role playing, then we can sit down and talk about how fun that was. And, oh, by the way, what's our next role play we're going to do, or what are we having for supper? I don't care.
It'd be nice to have those equally as casual conversations.
Right.
Well, that is my goal, Miss B, is let's be equally casual about what we're having for supper and what we're going to role play tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think the more we have conversations about sexuality, the less, stigmas are attached to it, the more that everyone is just engaging with each other as, human beings, and there's not any stigma attached to that.
Yeah.
Right. So when you feel a stigma around something, that's the thing to talk about or journal about. I do like that idea of journaling and talking to somebody else. Listen to sex positive podcasts. There's a lot of them out there. I mean, obviously, I think people should listen to mine, but mine isn't the only one. There's Dan Savage's podcast is awesome. I love Dan Savage.
Ah, yeah, Savage Love, right?
Yep, right. The Savage Love podcast.
I like that one too.
I did an experiment with myself a few years ago on Dan's. I would listen to Dan's podcast up to he'd read these questions coming in, and then I'd turn the podcast off and I'd listen. I'd think, okay, what would my answer be to this? I'm a psychologist. Okay, I ought to be able to answer this shit as good as him. And then I'd turn it back on, listen to his answer. And unfortunately, his answers were better than mine.
Oh no!
The majority of the time. He is really good. I just can't say enough good about him. Now, I think I've improved. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm a total slouch, but he definitely is very skilled and very good at the way he sees the world. I like it.
Awesome. We had one last question from one of our listeners. This was from Kyle.
Oh.
And he had wanted to know what was the
most interesting
or the most out there sexual experience that you were either a part of or that you heard about.
Oh gosh, where do I begin?
It's a big question.
Well, I can tell you lots of stories. This is kind of a weird one, actually. Hold on just a second. So I'm going to speak in New York City. I'm on book tour, and a former submissive of mine had moved from Kansas City, where I'm at now, or where she used to live, back to New York. And I'd let her know I was coming. And she said, well, I'll meet you. And she comes to my talk, and she actually helps me sell books and stuff. And then her new dom met us, and we all went to a New York City dungeon. Well, I had never been to a New York City dungeon, and I'm all excited to go. What's a New York City dungeon like? And oh, by the way, it's the oldest dungeon in New York City, which has got to be really, really old. I don't know, 60, 70, 80 years old. We get there, and you could not find it if your life depended on it unless you knew exactly where to go. It's like in some warehouse somewhere. If I hadn't had him leading us, I wouldn't have known. And we get in there, and there's, 40 or 50 people, but nobody is playing. And it's kind of weird. It's like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and nobody's playing. So he and I get our toys out, and we tie her up. He's pretty good with a flogger. I'm real good with a flogger, and we start doing our thing. And it gets really quiet. I don't know why. I turn around and look, and there's like 50 people watching us flog her, thinking, this is weird. A hick from Kansas comes out here to give flogging lessons to New York City dungeon people. And as far as I know, nobody ever played that whole night. We were the only ones that played in that dungeon.
Wow. That is so odd.
Yeah.
It's like going to a middle school dance, and there's all these people on the wall and nobody's doing anything.
Yeah. And it was a Saturday night in New York City. So anyway,
wow.
But that was kind of a weird story. I don't know. I've had a lot of cool experiences.
That's a great weird story. I would definitely consider that weird. Because you would think, you go in with all these people and they would just be, doing their own thing and busy. Yeah, but right. No.
Yeah, but I've been to a lot of conventions. I don't think a lot of people know that there's some really cool conventions. There's swingers conventions. There's BDSM conventions out there. There's furry conventions. There's thousands and thousands of people going to these conventions every year.
I still haven't figured out what furries are.
We've explained this before, Demanda.
I don't understand.
And don't you get God started looking up furry porn during the podcast again.
I'm just trying to, when you want to understand something, I'm trying to gain I try to visualize what this is, and I'm not sure.
Well, go to a furry convention or look it up.
Well, I would like to be a little more informed before I go into another culture. You want to know what the parameters of that culture are before you just walk in and do something untoward. I don't want to insult the furries.
Yeah, I'm not sure Urban Dictionary would be a good resource in this particular instance. But it's not like is there a Sexopedia? I feel like there should be.
Do you wear fur tails or what is this?
Well, I mean, some people who are just, just sort of,
they have They have a furry gathering at Dragon Con. I know that.
On the outside, some people who are just a little bit into dressing up as the particular animal that's kind of like their spirit animal or sexual animal, they'll wear maybe animal ears or tails to indicate that animal that they associate themselves with. And that's just very on the outskirts. Whereas, as you go further in, there's full body suits and things. And, there are some people that actually have animatronics and stuff in their full body animal suits and things to make it much more realistic. But it's kind of a lot of the, artwork and things, combines anime artwork with animals And there's
so is it a way of I don't know, maybe experiencing like freedom from like your intellectual self, like engaging in your animality as a way to experience some sort of, I don't know, freedom of expression, maybe?
Freedom from your own physical body, in imagining having this animalistic body to from which to express yourself sexually. And a good resource for sort of non-vanilla sexualities would be, I can't remember what network it was on, but the Masters of Sex series. It was a television series.
It was Showtime, wasn't it? Or was it HBO?
It might have been HBO. But there was some interesting information on that series.
Are you telling me to go watch that immediately? Yes. Yes, I am Miss Vanilla, apparently. And so I usually ask Miss B all these questions, and now I have you here, too.
I spend a lot of time on the internet.
She explains things to me.
Well, I think the moral of the story is those people are finding ways to express themselves that are satisfying to them, and they're away from religious dogma about it. I do think it's kind of funny. No, it's actually hilarious. I've been to a number of BDSM conferences over the years, Spanksgiving, for example.
Spanksgiving?
Spanksgiving.
I love it.
That's awesome.
The week before Thanksgiving in St. Louis every year, and they buy a whole hotel, and only kinky people can be there, and you got to register in advance and all that. But what I have found in these conferences is how many religious people are there. People walking around with crosses around their necks in kink, in bustiers and whipping each other and tying people up, and they're still Christian. It just blows my mind. But anyway, I don't think their minister probably knows it.
Probably not. Yeah. Or their next door neighbor.
They drove 300 miles to come to the convention because they wouldn't go to it in their own town, probably. Yeah. Their neighbor probably.
This interview is giving God's computer a really interesting
This is what God does during our podcast. This is his function. He Googles porn.
Yep. Which
And so
it appears he's doing right now.
And so after every episode of the podcast, the normal thing is then God speaks because he doesn't want people to know he exists during the podcast, and he tells us about all the porn that he found. But it's been quite an education for me, so it's usually very informative.
Yeah.
I learned about like a Kermit the Frog thing that I didn't know existed.
The moral of the story is go out there and find people who are sex positive and interact with them. Whether you go to a furry conference or a BDSM or a swingers, doesn't matter. Get out there and find people. When you go to these things, you don't have to participate. There's very clear rules about nobody is, everybody should feel safe. You can go to a swingers party or a BDSM gathering. Nobody's going to touch anybody inappropriately. Nobody's going to come on to you inappropriately because, they'll get kicked out in a heartbeat. There are people walking around just to make sure that doesn't happen. And then that allows you to freely interact with people who've got are very open about their sexuality. And I think that will help you get over a lot of the shame and guilt. Or it can anyway.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Well, it looks like we're going to have to wrap up. Is there anything that you'd like to plug, like any
your podcast,
upcoming talks that people might be able to catch you at, or also information about where we can find all of your things online?
Yeah, well, you can get online and find a lot of my talks on YouTube. I got tons of things on YouTube. But I would advise people to go watch the sex addiction talk I did. Also, the male shame talk, or read the article. Just Google male shame and Darrel. You'll find it. But I think both of those are important topics that you guys have brought up today. Also, I'm speaking. I'm actually going to be gone a lot this fall. I've got a huge month-long trip to go on, but it's vacation, so I'm
wonderful. Congratulations. Enjoy.
Going to go to Europe for a week and Africa for 3 weeks.
Wow.
So South Africa, it'll be pretty cool. But anyway, as a result, I haven't taken any speaking engagements this fall. I will be speaking at the Steve Allen Theater the first weekend of December.
Pardon me.
So I'll be speaking at CFI Los Angeles at the Steve Allen Theater in first weekend in December on the myth of sex addiction. So I'll be giving that talk there. And I'll be there because we're doing a documentary on the God virus, which is kind of cool.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And, this has blown my mind that somebody wants to do a documentary on that, on the book. And next week, as a big deal, I always have my big Labor Day party. It's next weekend. And we'll have people from all over the Midwest coming to my party. And Seth Andrews will be there, of the Thinking Atheist. Y'all know him, right?
We do, of course.
Yeah, Seth's going to be at my house. He's going to be doing a live podcast, and we're going to be doing a fundraiser for Camp Quest.
Awesome.
So that's the purpose. And there'll probably be 200 of my closest friends here partying for 21 hours. It starts Sunday afternoon and goes till Monday afternoon.
Oh, my goodness. That requires some stamina.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, people camp out here. People get a cheap hotel. I might have a few people sleeping on the floor. The St. Louis contingent always reserves my workroom down in my basement. So there will be 10 people on 5 air mattresses down there. They can't even get out to go to the bathroom without stepping on somebody down there. And sometimes I think other things happen that I'm not aware of. I was told last year that somebody had an orgy in a tent, and, they didn't even invite me.
Hey, well, that's adult summer camp. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, it's family friendly until 10 o'clock.
I think that's a great rule at all times.
Hey, thanks for having me on today, guys. Been good talking to you.
Thank you so much.
So much for being here.
Host Miss Behaven and Amanda Wright promote secular feminism in a mostly metaphorical orgy of information, wisdom, and humor, with the help of the likes of a producer named God, a farting flying unicorn mascot, and a couple of dicks in the penis gallery. Promoting secular feminism is a podcast like no other that uses a spoonful of humor to help the feminism go down. Catch new episodes every other Sunday on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, and soon beam directly into your magical Meat Pocket communicator. Plug our RSS feed into your favorite podcasting app. Find that feed on our website that's creatively called promotingsecularfeminism.com. Potential stalkers and adoring fans can find us on social media at facebook.com/promotingsecularfeminism and on Twitter at secularfeminism. Want to reach out and touch someone? Well, contact us at promotingsecularfeminism@gmail.com. Leave a comment on our website, Spreaker page, and or message us on Facebook or Twitter. PSF is here to meet your bi-weekly feminist needs with a healthy, luminescent, flatulent chaser and is a proud member of Reason Alliance Media, a united voice for reason.
Okay, so this is part 1 of what I hope to be an ongoing series about reproductive healthcare access. So I am calling it Access Denied, Part 1, Listeners' Stories. An article going around on social media lately tells the story of an Australian woman who had 2 children with her husband, but was denied a tubal ligation procedure because she was, quote, too young. According to the article on scarymommy.com, yes, I know, who cited an Australian ABC News website as its original source for this story.
It sounds like they know my mom.
Quote, in a post on Facebook, Maitland, the woman in question, explained that 3 of her children have been the result of contraception failures. So at this point, she had 3 children, all due to contraception failures. Quote, I'm currently 27 weeks pregnant with my 3rd contraception baby, she explained. People told me I wasn't taking it, contraception, and wanted to have 3 babies in 3 years. That is not the truth, unquote. Not only that, but her husband, who was 30 years old at the time, was also denied a vasectomy because of his wife's age. While the story may seem like an isolated incident, we know from our interview with Kate Ashcraft in episode 26, the anniversary episode, that these stories are not that uncommon.
What's scarymommy.com?
It is a website for potential parents.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
That's why I don't know about it. Go ahead.
I thought it was a website made about your mother-in-law.
My mother-in-law is a saint and is wonderful.
So is mine.
That's called Momsters.
So this series, Access Denied is what I'm calling it, will explore these stories about people being denied medical procedures related to reproductive health because of non-medical reasons. For this segment, just today, I will simply put forth the stories of those who contacted me via social media when I asked if others had experienced similar situations to those described in the aforementioned article. Before I do so, I would like to send out my sincerest gratitude to those listeners and friends who came forth to tell their stories. First of all, we've got Mia Raven, founder of the Montgomery Area Reproductive Justice Coalition and Powerhouse, Power standing for People Organizing for Women's Empowerment and Rights. She wrote, quote, I have no problem saying this openly. I was denied until I was 30 because of the too young BS. I was on medication that negated my birth control, and well, you can imagine what happened. I miscarried before the appointment I had already made at the local clinic. I went to my OBGYN to make sure the miscarriage was complete and asked yet again for a tubal. I was denied again at first. I then threatened to sue unless I got a referral or the tubal on the grounds that the OBGYN's religion, Catholic, was being forced upon my body. He then had the nerve to ask my husband, fiance at the time, if he was okay with it. I looked at him and said, look at me. This is not his body. It's mine. Luckily, said OBGYN was also a lawyer, and coming from a legal family background, I tossed around some high-powered attorneys' names, and that was the end of that. Best decision I have ever made. Hashtag child-free by choice. The icing on the cake is that if our current, quote, chemical endangerment laws were in place at the time, the doctor could have reported me to the state and they could have pressed charges, even though I was taking medication that I was prescribed to legally by a doctor. And anti-choice folks wonder why addicts and alcoholics abort at higher rates. To avoid prison, unquote. It's no wonder she's the founder of the Montgomery Area Reproductive Justice Coalition. That's quite a story. And I appreciated the hashtag child-free by choice. That was nice.
Because
touch.
You know your co-host identifies.
Yes. And also the all caps quotation in there. I hope I did that justice. Because there are some other all
I think
caps
you did.
in here.
I felt like I really heard her voice at that moment, and I appreciated the power of her standing up at that moment and saying, look at me, this is my body. And I find myself when I'm in that situation, I don't know if it's a matter of like being shocked that, and I know that I shouldn't be, but I'm like, wait a minute, like it's 2016. I am an accomplished woman and I have to tell you that I have rights and you have to respect them. And so I'm sort of shocked and silenced a lot of times when those things happened. Mm-hmm. And it's only afterwards that I'll say, wait, that was completely wrong. And why didn't I say something? So I really appreciated the power of her voice in that moment.
Awesome. Another listener wrote, quote, when I was 23, I had an ectopic pregnancy and a ruptured fallopian tube. As I was being prepped for emergency surgery, I asked my doctor if he would go ahead and tie the other tube while he was in there. He said no, because I didn't have children. I explained that I didn't want children, never had. He said I was too young to make that decision. Hell, I wonder what he would have said to 6-year-old me when I said, I hate babies.
You know, I love this show.
That's so cute.
I never liked the babies either. I didn't have the baby dolls.
No, you strangled them, didn't you?
I didn't strangle them.
I'm talking about the baby dolls.
I gave Barbies
Ripped 'em
funerals.
Well, that's another story.
Yeah. That's what you get for giving me a sandbox and dolls.
Mm.
You could bury. I see why you buried them.
Hey, I buried my Evel Knievel.
I lived across the street from a cemetery, though.
Wait a minute, what was-
legitimately speaking, I saw that kind of thing a lot.
What was the story again? I'm thinking about the Barbie.
23 years old.
Yes. Okay. Another denied tubal like Asians.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So we
I'm
have
with you.
another story here. The sister of a friend of mine from high school wrote,
That wasn't me being flippant. That was me being slightly inebriated and exhausted
Yes.
simultaneously. I apologize.
Yeah. Amanda's a little loopy tonight, unlike every other night.
What?
Yeah, she's just a little loopy right now.
Well, tonight is more to do with exhaustion than with drunkenness, but you know.
So we won't be hearing about the whiskey indigestion tonight.
But I'm I'm having a cider burp at the moment, but I'm trying not to do that into the microphone. But go ahead.
Okay. So a friend of mine from high school, her sister wrote, quote, "My sister tagged me in something that you had posted about being denied a tubal ligation." That was the article that I mentioned at the beginning of this segment. Quote, "I had one about 5 or 6 years ago, but was denied the first few times. When they did say yes, I was forced to wait 1 to 2 years. When I said that I wanted it done, I gave very valid reasons for it and proved that I had thought about the health of myself and the child, yet I was treated like I didn't have a choice or didn't know what I was talking about. I wanted to have mine done due to having dealt with epilepsy related to a traumatic brain injury I had as a child. Though I had brain surgery and had been seizure-free for a few years, I had an aunt that had epilepsy and would have seizures whenever she had a child. Though I know that she dealt with a different form of epilepsy, I didn't know that if I got pregnant, I did know that if I got pregnant, I still had the risk of seizures coming back, and also that I couldn't take certain meds. It turns out that the one seizure medication that is seen as being safe to take while pregnant is one I can't take because it caused severe health problems for me, yet the doctors also didn't want to listen to me about that at first. Due to my having had the brain injury, even though I had graduated high school and was going to college, I was treated like I didn't know what I was talking about because of the brain injury. When I said I wanted to have it done, I brought up about the health concerns and said that if I get married and want to have a child, there are plenty of children that can be adopted. Even though I was giving valid information, I was still forced to wait.
You know, with all of these stories, I want to say something empathetic because I do empathize, or something insightful, but all that's running through my head is sort of in all caps, fuck,
Yeah.
It's just so infuriating that women are seen as, and from my perspective, it feels like they're saying we're too emotional. We're not rational enough to know when we don't want to have children, that it's an emotional thing and we'll change our minds because, everyone does, and that's the normal thing to do.
I think I've mentioned this before on another episode that we've done, and then it just goes back to, you think that this might have something to do with people's religious beliefs. You think that's what's running this decision that they're trying to make, or do you think they just really think that women are that stupid?
Yes and no. So what I feel like it is, because it's because women are so connected to their reproductive function, right? Most people define what it means to be a woman by their ability to reproduce. And women do this to themselves as well. They don't feel like they've achieved sort of womanhood unless they've reproduced. Mm-hmm. And it's, not the same for men. Men can have vasectomies and are given vasectomies, at all different ages, whether or not they've had children, because for some reason, even though it takes both the sperm and the egg, this person supplying the sperm isn't tied to the reproductive function like the person supplying the egg.
No. Well,
believe it or not, as much, because like with the article earlier, the guy couldn't even get a vasectomy because of his wife's age, but it was all about connecting the wife to her reproductive ability.
Now, I don't want to make this about the man thing here, but we are talking about in a situation where I don't have kids, and to the guys that I work with, that belittles me.
They say we don't have a family because we don't have children.
I don't have a family because I don't have children, and it's like they're trying to it take a little bit of my manhood away. It doesn't work, but it's still, you know, that pressure is there.
I love your manhood.
Well, thank you. Next.
Okay, that was me being both flippant and drunk.
Next story.
Just so you know, though, we are going to, hopefully in the ongoing series, I'd like to explore the legal issues that are at play here and the medical issues that are at play here and what research has been done into this concerning how doctors are making decisions based on non-medical reasons, but also the culture.
I'm really,
causing
I'm
this.
very interested to find this information out because right now, based upon the information that I have, it seems like cultural issues are influencing medical decisions. It's not sort of a straight up, health issue.
Yeah.
Or, influenced by any type of science. It's influenced by cultural perceptions of what a woman is, of femininity. And so I would very much like to find out more information on that. And that perspective is open to be changed if you supply that information. So we'll see.
Absolutely. So another listener wrote, quote, your post about tubal ligation has amazing timing. I'll be 29 in October and I've been fighting to get my tubes tied for almost 11 years. I was finally able to get an IUD 2 years ago, but was told that I needed my boyfriend's permission and I should come back at my next annual exam and bring him along. I've never been so upset in my life.
Wait, not even she has to bring him? Like for permit? Do you need a fucking permission slip?
Right?
Oh my
And it's just
God.
her boyfriend. They're not legally married.
Yeah, they're not even married, and they're saying, no, you got to get
And even if they were, fuck
by
that.
this person who might not be
Yeah.
involved in your life in the next month,
Yeah.
week, day.
Bring your
Would you
daddy.
like me to get a time machine and contact my future husband and get
Like,
a permission
what are they
slip?
going to do if she doesn't have a boyfriend? Like, have her bring her dad in?
Yeah. Exactly.
That is
Or
such
your
bullshit.
third uncle once removed. We just need a
Yeah.
dick in the situation.
Yes. Yeah. Bring your favorite author, but only if he's male.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, Mary Crook, who is a big fan of the show, wrote, quote, I never asked because I've never had kids and was happy on the pill. Hubby finally had a vasectomy, so we figured I was fine to go off it, but had vicious periods. Saw my doc and she asked if I wanted an ablation. Fuck yes! Of course, I'm 47 and she's a female, so less issue. But when husband went for his vasectomy, they actually wanted me to sign off. I thought that was fucked up. On the sign off, I wrote, it's his body, and then my signature.
Very well done.
That's
done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody actually reads those.
But Mr. Wright asked
so.
about a vasectomy at one point, and they didn't ask him any questions. They just said, sure.
Okay.
When would you like to schedule it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's totally reversible.
Yeah, I've had to talk to a couple people actually that have had it one done, and they're like, if you like to have your nuts in a vice grip, then go right ahead.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, really? Is it that painful?
It's
Hell
totally
yes.
not. No, I've just been very lucky. I have been denied a tubal ligation, but I also am probably just really infertile or something. I haven't always made wise decisions when it comes to contraception. Not that we all make wise decisions all the time when we're getting it on. I certainly haven't. And so I've just been really lucky in that I've never had to have an abortion or a tubal ligation hasn't become such an issue because I keep getting pregnant on the pill or something of that nature.
You mean
and so
pulling
that's
out
just
is not contraceptive?
no.
No.
So, and that's a type of biological.
Don't listen to him.
For me, it feels like biological privilege.
Well, if you could
Right?
if you could get
like
pregnant,
I'm just not going to.
Yeah.
I'm not reproductive.
That's an interesting
and so-
way of putting it. Yeah, you can have
I
all
have
the sex
biological
you want. And you don't have to worry
privilege.
about getting pregnant.
so if you could get pregnant from a facial, we'd have triplets already, right?
Oh, Jesus.
Go away. Who let him on the show?
This is
Why
all your
is he
fault.
here? I don't know.
Okay, so the next story said, Darcy Loman Craig wrote, quote, "It took my child-free sister ages to convince doctors to let her tie her tubes, and they only did it after she had a severe reaction to her IUD. It's bullshit. I was 15 when I had my first, and fully within my rights to decide to be a parent at that point. It makes me crazy that I faced less pushback from the medical community than my 30-year-old sister did."
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is so fucked up. These people, it's like the whole abortion thing. Like, you don't care about a baby as soon as it's born.
We're going to have people on the show, though, who want to have children, because we're going to get labeled, as rad femmes who are.
I want to have children. I don't know if you know this, listeners, but
You don't talk about it. You should talk about that.
I actually want to have children, and I take birth control pills, but that's it. Like, I've never, been interested in having an IUD because hormonal issues. But
and you'd be
I've
making
never
some
really
babies if it weren't for health issues.
Yes, this is true. But I am going to grad school because of those health issues. So that's a perk of the health problems.
That's a very positive
held me
spin.
back. Yeah. Just keep swimming.
Just spin it.
Just keep swimming. Just keep spinning. Another listener wrote, quote, "I haven't experienced this because I've never tried. I've never tried because of hearing so many of these stories back on Child Free Live Journal." Yeah, I know it's a bit
There's
of
a
a
child-free live journal?
blast from the past. And they continue, "I know I would never
missed
get
that.
approved, but there are plenty of things and people in this world that make my tubes tie themselves. So on a personal level, I guess it hasn't mattered so much."
I think my tubes tied themselves too.
I just thought that was so perfect. What a great way to describe.
Why do we call it having your
Having
tubes
to-
tied anyway? They're not fucking shoestrings.
I don't
Like,
know.
Don't you carterize
It's
them
too
or
much
something?
work to
I
say
don't know.
tubal ligation.
Well, I do know that I have a coworker that he had 2 kids. They had the third one on contraception, and they tied her tubes or tubal ligation, and she had a tubal pregnancy on the 4th one, and they had to go in and abort that one. And
See,
she had a full hysterectomy.
Those people are like super fertile,
Yes,
Super duper fertile.
You can imagine
Yeah,
how we
like-
joked with him.
like Justice League fertile.
Well, just get this.
I call that biologically challenged.
Well, they had the third one, and then exactly just a couple of weeks later, she had the tubal pregnancy.
Jeez.
I was like, dude, could you not wait?
That's my version of reproductive
Can you give her
challenge
like
right
5
there.
minutes, man? Come
yeah,
on.
no kidding.
On the other hand, she might have,
Isn't that a great
I was gonna
story
say-
of how masculine and spermy he is?
post-pregnancy,
That's not a
some
word, is
people
it?
could be
Spermy?
really horny too. So that might not have completely been his doing either. She might have demanded sex right now.
Well, he did say it was in the hospital bed.
Oh, God.
Oh dear.
Wow.
Yes,
What
she still had the stitches in.
I'm clutching my pearls. Let's move on.
I'm clutching my pearls and I'm not even wearing any, and I don't usually do that. Okay, so that's all for now, except we're going to have a little bit of a story time with my sister, Misty Meanor, when we can get her on the air. So we will be
Those
right
were
back.
wonderful stories. Thank you so much for sharing them, dear listeners.
Yes, definitely.
Well, they were not wonderful. They were horrible and horrific, but thank you for sharing them.
Everybody needed to hear about them.
Yes.
That's the point.
Horrible and horrific is redundant, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, we should stop now.
We're going to stop now.
Hey everybody, this is Andrew Garber from the Atheist Roundtable podcast. Find the Atheist Roundtable on Blog Talk Radio, or you can find the fan page for the Atheist Roundtable on Facebook. I'm here to tell you about the most amazing event coming to us in 2017. It's going to happen on April 21st and 22nd. It's going to happen at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Hickory, North Carolina, and it is ReasonCon 3. ReasonCon is the most amazing event that you will ever see. It is so freaking awesome. Already, we have amazing speakers lined up for ReasonCon 3, like Lawrence Krauss, Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Raw, and Callie Wright will all be at ReasonCon 3. So many more people will be there. just go to reasonnc.com so that you can be the first to know when people are added to that roster. Every year, ReasonCon is the time when you can meet some of your favorite podcasters, and I can guarantee you that ReasonCon 3 will be no exception to that. I can almost guarantee that people like the Atheist Avengers will be there, that Promoting Secular Feminism will be there, that that No Religion Required will be there, that the Barroom Atheist will be there, the Atheist Roundtable, that's me, I'll definitely be there, and I know that so many more podcasters that you know and love are going to come back to ReasonCon 3. In the past, we've had amazing podcasters that I'm sure are all going to come back and be part of this amazing event. Go to reasonnc.com to make sure that you can find out when your favorite podcaster gets on that roster. Again, ReasonCon 3, April 21st and 22nd of 2017 at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Hickory, North Carolina. You are going to love it. So get your information, because you can't get tickets yet. Get it. Go to reasonnc.com. Make sure you sign up for all the information as it comes your way. I'll see you there.
Okay, we have my sister, Misty Meanor, here to talk a little bit about the same thing that some of our listeners have been talking about, which was being denied healthcare procedures. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks
How
for
you
coming
doing?
on here. I'm good. How are you?
So great.
So tell our listeners a little bit about your attempt to get an IUD down here in Hickory, North Carolina.
In a vagina.
In the vagina.
Vagina. Well, as that is a place where the IUD does go.
I really did not know that.
It goes in your brain.
You know, the name intrauterine device, it should have been a clue.
No, not really.
Okay.
Yep.
Really.
Your uterus is in your brain,
So
for future reference.
I think to preface the story, I had a really, really hard time. The reason I wanted an IUD, not that I should have to back it up with any reason, but my personal reasons for wanting an IUD were because of the fact that I went through years and years of heavy, heavy periods and crippling, horrible, 8 to 9 day periods that would have me bedridden, and I couldn't go to school, I couldn't go to work, I couldn't do anything because I couldn't move.
Preach.
And they gave me iron supplement birth control pills when I was first starting out. And those worked really well, but they didn't have any cheaper versions, any generics, anything like that. So I was looking at about $128 a month.
This was before Obamacare.
Well, this is before all of this. It's
I would call that a woman tax.
Yeah.
Yes, So, and before that, I was taking all sorts of other things that would make me bleed for 2 months, and it was awful. So I was really done with the whole paying my entire paycheck towards birth control just so that I could actually go to work and make the money to pay for my birth control. So none of the insurance, I had decent insurance. It wouldn't cover an IUD, any of those things. So I went down to my gynecologist down there asking about an IUD because I knew that there were a couple different kinds. And I had a pretty decent relationship with my gynecologist. I mean, I'd been going to her for 3 or 4 years. And she looked right in my face and said, well, don't you want to have kids? Well, yeah, I want to have kids. Maybe eventually. I don't know if I want them right now, but that doesn't mean I can't get one and then take it out or it's not going to run out. And she refused to give me one because she told me it would take away my ability to have children, which we all know is a big fat lie. So for 2 or 3 years, I tried to get an IUD and was not able to get one. And then I came back up to Michigan and went to my gynecologist from when I was a teenager. And I'd known her for a long time. And I said, Marge, I'd really love to get an IUD. And my previous doctor wouldn't let me. And she just looked at me. She said, why? Well, she said I would become infertile. Well, that's a crock of shit.
She's so great.
She said, it's none of my business if you want an IUD, if you don't want to have kids, if you want to adopt kids, if you just feel like waiting a little bit and making sure, or if your periods are just too bad, it's none of my business. If you want
Or if
one.
you really like to have a lot of sex. See, I love Marge.
See, exactly. Marge
is great.
Well, and Marge is not afraid to tell you. She's like, "Oh, okay. I see you've got some interesting things going on down here. Is this all consensual?" And I'm like, "Yep." So, I mean, the coolest. And she's also one of those where, like, because she was the very first one I went to. I was 14. She was so cool. And she was like, "Your mom doesn't have to be in here to talk about this if you don't want to. It can just be us." So, I mean, she gets it. And so it's just the matter of going from one place where, like, I had a family member work. Like, my cousin was a nurse at this doctor's office, all of these things. And I wasn't able to get an IUD at this place where, like, my family worked and, like, people I knew worked. And then I come up here and this lady's like, "Oh, whatever. It's fine. You can just get whatever you want. It's your body. Enjoy."
Because it's apparently best medical practice to make sure you don't have sex until you're ready to have a child.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Of course not. Because who does that?
No,
Yes,
not me.
The moral of the story here is be like Marge.
Be like Marge.
For real. Does Mom have a nickname?
No.
Oh, okay.
She
Because
could
always
be
told
Mom Behavin'.
Mom behaving.
She deserves a better name than that.
She does deserve a better name than that. We'll come up with one because I'm sure she'll be on the show at some point.
I did tell Aaron the other day, I was like, "Your grandma said that you have to try on the shoe before you buy it."
Yeah.
I had to sit and explain it to him because he's 13 and doesn't quite understand. But,
I would imagine that our guest from this show today would agree with that statement. We talked to Dr. Darrel Ray, who is the host of Secular Sexuality podcast.
That's very hard to say right in a row, isn't it?
It is.
and get 10 times fast.
Yeah, no, I've been drinking too much for that. But
more reason to.
He's like the Mr. Rogers of
Sex.
So you should totally listen to that podcast because it's amazing.
You get your flogger out very gently.
He's like listening to Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers talking about flogging.
And you do
without the hair in the sweater.
You do a bit of
I would be
whipping.
more inclined if he wore the sweater. It's kind of like when you soothingly turn on Dr. Ruth and you're not afraid of anything, and then all of a sudden there's a big dildo, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
And she's stroking it.
Yeah. She does. Yep.
Puts rubbers on it, strokes it. Yeah.
Goodness. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on and telling us your story. I really appreciate you coming on here.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Miss Demeanor.
Thank you, sis.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you know where an IUD goes now.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
This has been an educational experience for Mr. Wright.
You know. And knowing is half the battle.
That's right.
Go, Joe.
That way you don't stick it up your ass. You sit it in your other ear.
You want an interanal device? Is that what you want?
This would be a good place for the safe word.
Banana.
Coming up next on the Dr. Wu Show, a special episode about bullying. Bullies all over the country are feeling bullied by their victims. Dr. Wu speaks to a couple of bullies who have been in turn picked on themselves. And we speak to Dr. Schill, who has some hard-hitting advice. Also, can GMOs cause kleptomania in horses? Dr. Wu gets a Thetan enema. All this and more on this week's Dr. Wu.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Dr. Wu. I'm Dr. Wisteria Wu, and this is my show. Today, we are going to tackle a difficult topic. No, not bullying. Bullying. Bullying has long been a traditional method in this country in separating the weak from the strong. But more and more, the victims of bullying and their allies are striking back, sometimes by using reason and logic. Our first guest is Phil Plimpton, better known to the world as the hero Cabana Boy. Welcome to my show, Mr. Plimpton. Or may I call you Cabana Boy?
Thank you, Wisteria. You can call me Cabana Boy.
Please, call me Doctor.
Doctor?
Now, you have been a superhero for how long?
About 6 months.
And for those who aren't familiar with your secret origin, would you mind telling us exactly how you became the crime fighter Cabana Boy?
Well, I was bitten by a radioactive Cabana Boy. Now I have the powers and abilities of a Cabana Boy.
Interesting. And what powers and abilities are those exactly?
Well, I can walk around in bikini shorts just like a Cabana Boy. I also serve drinks to older women at pool parties and at golf clubs.
Fascinating. Now, most people would assume that a superhero of your caliber would be free to bully whomever they choose.
At first, yes. With my amazing abs and sexy butt, I was able to mock at will. But now?
But now your victims...
They are starting to fight back.
Literally fight you?
No, I mean they, verbally.
I see. So can you give us an example of how one of these recent episodes of bullying went?
Sure. Well, I was out with some buds from my fraternity, drinking and carouseling.
You mean carousing?
No, I mean carouseling. We were getting drunk and riding the carousel down at the state fair.
I see. Continue.
Well, this chick comes up and she's got these tight jeans on. I mean, you can see everything.
A clear fashion faux pas.
Well, I don't know who her pa is, but it was all laid out there for us to see, that's for sure.
And then what happened?
Well, we started whistling, saying, "Hey, sexy mama," that sort of thing.
And is that when she bullied you?
No, she kept walking past the carousel, so we jumped off and followed her. I said, "Hey, slut, you think you're too good for us?" And she kept walking.
So she didn't recognize your catcalling at all?
No.
Then what?
Well, I jumped in front of her and said, "I'm talking to you, bimbo." Then she said, "Stuff it, creep."
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she called me a creep. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it.
Are you calling me a liar?
No, I am saying I find your story extraordinary.
Well, it isn't. It happens all the time.
People call you a creep?
Yes, and all I was doing was publicly harassing her.
Unbelievable.
It's true, I tell you.
Not only are superheroes like Cabana Boy here not free of this new trend of victims standing up for themselves, but neither are would-be politicians. Our next guest has been a businessman for many years and has recently entered the presidential race by creating a third party called the Teabaggers. Everyone, please welcome George Diamond. Thank you for being on our show, Mr. Diamond.
Please, call me Master Diamond or Hysteria.
Master Diamond?
Yes.
All right, Master Diamond, if you could call me Doctor.
Not gonna happen. I don't trust doctors. I might trust you, but not doctors. I mean, seriously, they're great. But not doctors. Scientists, they think they know so much. Not as much as me. Seriously.
Oh, I'm not a scientist.
Who cares? No, but seriously, you're great.
So you're a politician?
No, that's not true, Wanda. I'm just a humble businessman. But I'm so rich. I mean, seriously. Seriously, you have no idea how rich I am. I crap in a solid gold toilet. My crap is gold. It doesn't even smell. It smells like gold. Seriously.
Okay. You're a businessman who has started a very successful third party in this country.
Yes, the Teabaggers. We think that the Tea Party is a bunch of pansies. Who drinks tea anyway? Sissy British drink. Seriously. Not like, coffee. That's a tremendous drink. Black and strong. Just like some of my friends. Seriously, I have many friends who are black and strong. Tremendous friends. You won't believe how black and strong these friends are.
I love you, George Diamond.
If we could just get back on topic, or Master Diamond, your new political group is anti-political correctness. Am I correct?
Yeah. What is that anyway? Political correctness. I don't have time for political correctness. Don't even have time to say it. PC. How's that? I don't even have time to be PC. How's that? Teabaggers believe that being PC is sissy. Only sissies have PCs. Me, I prefer to use my old typewriter. Her name is Candy.
You have a typewriter named Candy?
My secretary is named Candy, and she has a typewriter. She writes type or whatever. Simply fabulous secretary. Tremendous boobies. Seriously, you've never seen boobs on a chick like this one. All natural, too. I should know. I paid for them.
And there has been a lot of pushback about the Teabagger stance on political correctness, hasn't there?
Yes, sissy liberal. What do you call them? Regressions? Regrets? They got a funny name.
regressive left?
Oh, there's plenty of them left. Let me tell you, believe me. All whiners, not winners. Not like me. I'm a winner. Seriously. They whine and they talk back. I was telling this chick with big boobs the other day, I said, "Hey, Madeline Albright, you got great big titties." Big titties for a liberal. You know what she said to me? She called me a misogynistic troglo-what's-it. Can't even say the word sissy liberal word.
Troglodyte?
Thank you, sissy boy. Yes. Troglo-what's-it. That's what she called me. Seriously, unbelievable. I just tell her like it is. Some people don't like the truth, like Barack Obama, whatever his name is. He's a lizard man from Mars. Seriously. Nobody wants to believe that it's true. Where are his Earth papers? I want to see his Earth papers. That proves that he was born on Earth.
It looks like that's all our time for today.
Hey, what about me?
Well, hurry up. I'm getting a Thetan enema later. Our next guest is Dr. Phyllis Schill, graduate of the Hoboken Night School for Vacuum Repair and Brain Psychology. Dr. Schill, welcome.
Thank you, and please call me Dr. Schill.
I did.
Let's not dwell on the past, Dr. Wu. I'm here to talk about the future of these two fine bullies and the problems that they face and how I think I can help.
How can you help, Dr. Schill?
It sounds to me like these bullies need to realize that they're the bullies, not their victims. Their victims are victims, and victims don't take up for themselves.
But they do take up for themselves, doctor. I don't know what to do when a woman I am mocking or bullying fends for herself. It's not fair.
It isn't fair, and we have to accept that. We have to admit that everyone is a bully, and when you're being bullied, you should shut up and take it. Otherwise, you could hurt the feelings of the person who is trying to demean you for your own good. Otherwise, how else will you stop being such a pussy?
Exactly.
Shut up, you. I only have so much time on this show before Dr. Wu gets an E-meter shoved up her colon.
Do me next.
Not on your life, Diamond. You're the leader of an entire political movement, and you still feel victimized. Stop whining and start winning. Tell those victims to lie down and take it.
I do. I did.
And that's all there is to it.
Well, that wasn't very revealing or helpful at all.
Thank you. Be sure to buy my new book, Dr. Schill Sells Out, at your favorite bookseller now. Also, I'm getting my own show, Dr. Schill, on the MRA Network.
Tremendous.
Thank you so much for coming by today, doctor and guests. Next on Dr. Wu, a large German woman is going to clean out all of my thetans with a coffee enema. Also, we asked the question, can carrots read minds? All this and more on the next hour, Dr. Wu. Thanks for listening to PSF, Promoting Secular Feminism. I'm Miss B. Haven, keeping the troglodytes out of your repro rights.
And I'm Demanda Wright, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Special thanks to our guest star, Bobby Carey of No Religion Required, for being our Trump-like character, Mr. Master Diamond. Yay! Thanks for putting up with us.
Good job, Bobby.
Trump-like character.
Trump-like character.
Bobby.
He's sweet and low.
Nice.
Sure. Well, I was out with some buds from my fraternity, you know, drinking and carousing.
It actually says carouseling.
Okay. Sorry.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Nope.
All right. Let me get that one again. Carouseling.
Dumbass.
No, last time it said
that was
carousing.
That was,
and I said carouseling.
and now it's a thing. No, originally, like four sketches ago or something, it said carousing and accidentally said carouseling. And it was like our VH1 behind the podcast thing.
No.
So now it's a thing. And
carouseling, but that's
I know.
all mine says.
I know,
Yeah,
but
it is.
that's
that's
it's
right.
making a
It had
reference.
to have been there, I guess.
It's making a reference to having fucked it up.
I've got to
before.
I got to redo that line and fuck up the word. Sorry.
God fucks up all the time around here.
All right, let me try that again.
I'm glad I'm not the one editing. You have no idea how rich I am. I crap in solid gold. I crap in a solid fuck. Seriously. All whiners, not sinners, not sinners. Try that again. You know what she said to me? She called me a misogynistic. What the fuck is that word?
It's supposed to say troglo, what's it?
A who?
Troglo, what's it? Like a troglodyte, but troglo and then what's it?
Troglo?
Troglo, what's it?
Okay, sure. Take 409. I'm not even going through the titty thing, sorry. You know what she said to me? She called me a misogynistic troglo? Is that what?
Yeah, troglo.
God damn it. Can't y'all write normal shit?
I didn't write this.
Troglo, what's it?
Yeah, what he said. Can't even say the word. Clearly, right? You see that? What the fuck?
We say that pretty much at the end of every sketch.
Oh.
This is what we do every single sketch.
Do you think we've got clean enough takes on everything to go through? Okay.
It takes the magic.
No, but let me
I
tell
can
you,
always-
you've got some great bloopers.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, where
Oh,
you
yeah.
said all the blah, 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 blah. Those will be
Yeah,
in. That'll be in
you've
there.
got,
That'll be at the end.
you've got plenty just from me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.